Okay, are we ready? If you guys can hear me, I will begin telling you about the Management Zone Implementation Plan. So thank you all for joining us today. My name is Barb Dalgish. I'll be telling you all about the Management Zone Implementation Plan, specifically focusing on the drinking water solutions. And let's move on to the next slide. So today, I'd like to give you an overview of the steps that the Kings Management Zone has taken to date in order to comply with the nitrate control program so that you can get a sense of how we got to where we are now. Then I will provide a description of many of the components included in the latest required regulatory submittal called the Management Zone Implementation Plan, or MZIP as we sometimes call it. I'll be focusing mainly on the drinking water solutions and some other components, and then I will pass it over to my colleague Richard Meyerhoff to discuss the nitrate reduction program. And you'll see that all of these slides, big props to the Kings Water Alliance for providing the Spanish translation directly on the screen. That's really great. So the nitrate control program, which was established in 2018, has three main goals. These goals are listed on the slide. The first goal has to do with providing safe drinking water supplies to residents that have been impacted by elevated nitrate in their groundwater supplies. The second goal has to do with reducing the amount of nitrate going into the groundwater so that dischargers is what Deborah just described and explained. It's anybody with a permit. So dischargers can stop causing or contributing to nitrate exceedances. The third and final goal has to do with long-term managed aquifer restoration, with the caveat of being reasonable, feasible, and practicable. And I'll get into that a little bit later. The nitrate control program prioritizes providing safe, free drinking water for residents relying on well water with unsafe levels of nitrate. The entire Central Valley floor has been prioritized in order to identify the areas that have the worst nitrate problems in their groundwater. So the map on the right-hand side of your screen shows that prioritization, with the red areas being the highest priority. The Kings Subbasin was identified as being in the Priority 1 category, which was why the Kings Water Alliance was formed and the management zone approach was taken. So this slide provides the major regulatory requirements and dates associated with the Kings Water Alliance and the formation of the management zone. Starting in May of 2020, under the Nitrate Control Program, the Regional Water Quality Control Board sent out notices to comply to every person who has a permit to discharge nitrate. So each person who received this notice to comply was given a choice between two different pathways. Path A was for permitted dischargers to go it alone and comply with the nitrate control program as an individual. The alternative, or Path B, allowed for multiple dischargers to come together to manage the nitrate problem collectively. Most of the permitted dischargers in the Kings Management Zone opted to join forces and comply with the nitrate control program together. The first regulatory requirement for the newly formed Kings Management Zone was to prepare a preliminary management zone proposal. This was submitted in March of 2021 and contained information about the proposed boundary of the management zone, who was included as participants in the management zone, and also established an early action plan to provide free domestic well tests and free drinking water supplies to residents impacted by nitrate in their groundwater. The implementation of this early action plan began in May of 2021. The next required submittal after that was the final management zone proposal, which basically finalized the establishment of the management zone and was submitted to the regional board in August of 2022. Once the regional board approved the final management zone proposal in February of 2023, the clock started for the Kings Water Alliance to develop its management zone implementation plan, or MZIP, in about 6 months. And that document was submitted to the regional board in September of 2023, so not too long ago. And that is also the focus of today's community engagement meeting. So what's in the management zone implementation plan? Well, there are a lot of different components covered in the MZIP document to address all three nitrate control program goals. So to address the first goal of the nitrate control program having to do with providing safe drinking water, there are two major sections of the MZIP document addressing the emergency and interim drinking water program and the long-term drinking water solutions. Addressing the second nitrate control program goal is the MZIP component for the nitrate reduction program, which focuses on figuring out how much each discharger will need to reduce their nitrate load over time in order to cease causing or contributing to nitrate exceedances in groundwater. Other components of the MZIP document discuss restoration, surveillance and monitoring, implementation, compliance, and reporting, which support the third and final nitrate control program goal. So now I'd like to go into more detail about how the Kings Water Alliance is addressing that first goal of the nitrate control program, namely providing safe drinking water supplies to people affected by elevated nitrate in their groundwater supply. The emergency and interim drinking water program detailed in the Management Zone Implementation Plan document, or the MZIP document, is the first line of defense for providing safe drinking water to residents within the Kings Management Zone. This is a continuation of the early action plan that started back in May of 2021. So this involves various outreach activities that engage the public through different media outlets, including in-person events, hybrid events like today's event, written mailed flyers, meetings, online events, etc., to inform residents about the domestic well testing program and the free bottled water delivery service and water fill stations in operation that the Kings Water Alliance provides. The domestic well testing program is a service that the Kings Water Alliance makes available to all residents with a private domestic well within the management zone. If that well test comes back from the laboratory with nitrate levels that exceed the safe drinking water standard, the Kings Water Alliance helps the resident enroll in a bottled water delivery service funded by the Kings Water Alliance. There are also 3 water fill stations in the Kings Water Alliance area. Deborah showed you the map earlier, so there's one in Hanford, one in Kerman, and one in Dinuba at the Circle K, where anybody can fill sports bottles or 1, 3, or 5-gallon containers of safe drinking water for free. The emergency and interim drinking water program features I just described are a great way to provide short-term and immediate access to safe drinking water for residents, but the management zone also wants to achieve long-term solutions for its residents as well. So another part of the management zone implementation plan, or MZIP document, has to do with long-term drinking water solutions. Even though every resident in the management zone can apply for the free domestic well test and possibly qualify for the free bottled water delivery if their nitrate levels are unsafe, there are areas within the management zone where there are more residents in urgent need of a longer-term solution. To this end, we have identified what we're calling initial focus areas, or areas within the management zone where we want to focus on finding and facilitating long-term drinking water solutions first. The MZIP document provides a characterization of each of these initial focus areas and establishes milestones and a timeline for facilitating these long-term solutions. The MZIP document also contains a long-term drinking water solutions work plan that includes descriptions of potential solutions and challenges, outreach, and potential funding that I will get into more detail in a few slides. So in order to identify the areas within the management zone that have the most urgent need for long-term drinking water solutions, we took a science-based approach to prioritize the management zone. Another section of the MZIP document is on management zone characterization, where we dove into lots of different topics, including looking at ambient nitrate conditions and trends in groundwater quality. We looked at how others at the state were assessing drinking water needs and drinking water risks, the locations of disadvantaged and severely disadvantaged communities, and we also looked at the domestic well density and population density in areas of elevated nitrate. We also considered looking at nitrogen loading rates throughout the management zone, as well as the locations of early action plan bottled water deliveries as potential criteria for helping us identify these initial focus areas. We ended up relying on the 3 key criteria listed to the right to help us narrow down these areas within the management zone for our initial focused areas. These key criteria include the locations of disadvantaged or severely disadvantaged communities, the areas where the density of domestic wells and population within areas of elevated ambient nitrate concentrations were high, as well as incorporating local knowledge of communities in most urgent need. So this map shows the locations of the initial focus areas where the Kings Water Alliance is going to start facilitating long-term drinking water solutions for residents impacted by high nitrate in their groundwater. For the Kings Water Alliance, there are 8 initial focus areas outlined in light blue shapes on this map. From west to east, we have the Raisin City area, the Easton area, South Selma area, South Sanger area, North Reedley area, South and West Dinuba area, North Dinuba between Reedley and Orange Cove area, and the Orosi East Orosi area. The total population of residents within these initial focus areas is just shy of 15,000 people, with an estimated population of about 13,000 located in areas of elevated nitrate. In terms of domestic wells, we are aiming to facilitate long-term drinking water solutions to help over 1,800 domestic wells, most of which are located in areas with elevated nitrate concentrations in groundwater. That we want to first, we have to formulate our plan to facilitate long-term drinking water solutions. So this doesn't happen in a bubble. This starts with outreach and engagement like we are doing today. The schematic on the right illustrates the outreach and engagement plan for long-term drinking water solutions described in the management zone statement. We start with the cloud of different ideas and potential options for drinking water solutions in initial focus areas and throughout the management zone area. Then we identify the entities and possible methods for how we plan to engage with the community and stakeholders. So this includes coordinating with the counties, the state, local entities, groundwater sustainability agencies, and the public, and would take place through outreach events like we are having today, including workshops, public meetings, roundtable discussions, written surveys, online surveys, etc. Throughout the process of facilitating long-term drinking water solutions, outreach will be on and potential opportunities will be explored. There will be a lot of community involvement within the initial focus areas in order to gain meaningful input from the residents themselves as to what potential solutions are preferred. Potential will be explored, and if the analysis will occur to help narrow down the number of potentials that will be selected with the help of the community and residents before implementation. As the management zone goes through this process for the initial focus areas, we will start to expand our focus to other areas within the management zone and repeat the process to cover more areas where nitrate has impacted residents' groundwater drinking water supplies. Of course, during this entire process, the early action plan, which has now transitioned into the emergency and interim drinking water program, where domestic well testing and free bottled water delivery, water fill stations will available at no cost to the residents. So what do some of these long-term drinking water solutions actually look like? The circle or wheel on this slide shows you possible drinking water solutions for existing public and state water systems. And the wheel on the next slide I'll show you shows possible drinking water solutions for domestic well users. So focusing first on existing public water systems, there are traditional solutions, watershed or indirect solutions, and non-term solutions. I won't get into all of this in detail, but some of the traditional solutions include optimizing the water system, connecting to an existing adjacent water system, which is called regionalization or consolidation. There's also intertie or purchasing water, finding and securing an alternate surface water supply or a new supply, such as a new well, a groundwater well in a different area. Also improving or initiating a nitrate treatment system. So non-traditional long-term solutions include other other things like indirect or watershed solutions that aim to improve water quality in areas where public water systems have their water source. So this could be done through a source control program, such as the nitrate reduction program, or through groundwater recharge projects. Water exchanges is another non-traditional solution where public water systems or water purveyors can set up agreements to exchange water. So this may be beneficial in cases where a water system or water purveyor is able to accept water that has a high nitrate concentration due to the ability to blend it with other sources or treat the water with an existing treatment system or find other beneficial uses for the water that other things like point of use or point of entry devices that actually treat the water at the tap or sink inside the house or at the water pipe entrance to the whole house could be considered for the interim or as a pilot long-term solution approach. Utilizing fill stations is another interim or non-traditional long-term solution to ensure safe drinking water sources to residents that maybe don't want to install any treatment devices and can still use their existing water supply for everything except drinking water. So moving to the next circle or wheel, a subset of the possible solutions seen on the last slide could be facilitated for domestic well users. So all of these different solutions are described in detail in the Management Zone Implementation Plan, including the challenges associated with identifying and implementing long-term solutions. Some of these potential challenges include capital cost, which will vary depending on the selected solution, and the fact that operation and maintenance for the water systems may become more depending on the solution that's chosen. Funding opportunities will therefore be explored, including the safe and affordable funding for equity and resilience, or SAFER funds that Deborah mentioned earlier, the state water board consolidation projects, county projects, general drought funding, Prop 68 groundwater treatment and remediation grant program, cleanup and abatement account, urgent drinking water needs funding, the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, Drinking Water for Schools program, Prop 1 groundwater quality funding program, and others. Again, all the details that I'm telling you now can be found in that Management Zone Implementation Plan document if you're curious about other funding opportunities. For the drinking water solutions addresses the first goal of the nitrate control program to provide safe drinking water supplies to residents impacted by elevated nitrate in their groundwater supply. As I mentioned at the beginning of this section of the presentation, there are a lot of other components in the Management Zone Implementation Plan. To address the third goal of the nitrate control program, which is to restore nitrate water quality in groundwater where reasonable, feasible, and practicable, the Management Zone Implementation Plan has a section about long-term managed aquifer restoration. Since this goal has a lot of overlap with other programs, such as the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA, the restoration of the act incorporates and promotes coordination between groundwater sustainability plans and other entities that have recharge projects that could improve nitrate groundwater quality across the management zone. Other projects or management activities that may support efforts to meet the restoration goal of the nitrate control program may also include controlling nitrate sources to reduce the amount of nitrate discharge to the land surface. Could also include increasing sources of water distributed across or injected into the groundwater system to recharge the system with high quality and low nitrate source water, and extracting existing groundwater impaired by nitrate to use for potable uses. Other groundwater recharge projects, such as 2 recent governor's executive orders for floodwater diversion, can also promote restoration in the management zone. To measure the changes of the nitrate concentrations in groundwater, the Management Zone Implementation Plan incorporates a surveillance and monitoring program. Groundwater wells with nitrate data will be used to track long-term water quality conditions across the management zone. There are several different monitoring programs already in place within the Kings Water Alliance and throughout the Central Valley. The surveillance and monitoring program for the management zone does not attempt to recreate the wheel and aims to use existing long-term programs that may be tailored specifically to meet the needs of the management zone implementation and also implement those other programs and publicly available data with their own management zone domestic well testing program results. Another important item In the MZIP document, discussion of the program and the reporting of progress to the regional board, the state, and the public. Annual progress reports and required 5- and 10-year reports are planned. Annual reports will provide brief summaries of the status of implementation of key program elements of the MZIP, whereas the 5-year status report will provide an update on how the nitrate reduction program is meeting its milestones and the long-term drinking water solutions program. The 10-year report will include a status and technology assessment report that reassesses available best management practices and treatment technologies to manage nitrate and provide an update on how the nitrate reduction and long-term drinking water solutions programs are going. Speaking of the nitrate reduction program, I'm going to now hand it over to the Kings Water Alliance addresses the second goal of the nitrate control program in MZIP.